Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and the winner for the poll for today was about citizenship troubles for Britons living in other EU countries. So the uncertainty over Brexit obviously has been gathering pace since December 2018, ever since it became clear that there isn't a majority in favour of the Brexit that the government have negotiated. Many people have been concerned about plans for the future, and one such group, of course, are going to be Britons living in the EU or those who intend to move to another EU country. So since the risk of no deal Brexit emerged, Britons living abroad have been seeking citizenship within their adopted homelands in record numbers. But it's not a straightforward process for everyone. With some people, it's been possible to arrange for dual citizenship. That might be the ideal in many cases, but not all EU nations allow for that. So Austria, for example, often if there's no family link to a country, it's not a straightforward thing to do anywhere. Austria doesn't actually allow dual citizenship except in very strange situations. So in a case like this, what you really need to be thinking of is full citizenship as being the preferential course of action. If the Briton in question has roots in their new home and they'd qualify for it and they're determined to remain there. So, for example, one of the comments posted when I brought up this topic was someone living in Sweden with a Swedish wife and child. Now, in this and other situations, the first practical port of call, of course, needs to be the government website. So I actually looked for citizenship rights in Sweden for Britons or anyone abroad. And just as with other EU countries, there is a section of it on their website. It is in Swedish, so I had to use Google Translate, which gets you so far. The problem with Google Translate is some things could be lost in translation, but for things like this, it's okay. There's also a series of PDF documents and how to apply for settled status, things like that. But of course, I mean, they're obviously in Swedish as well, and it'd be a bit more work to get those through a translator. But then if you've got a Swedish family, you've got a ready-made translator yourself at home. Now, with the clock ticking down, of course, anyone still concerned about their status definitely needs to get onto one of those websites and apply according to those systems immediately. The same applies for EU citizens living in the UK, of course, and wishing to remain. In the UK, at least, Parliament did vote to waive the fees for doing this. There were initially fees for doing it. Parliament voted to scrap those. In other countries, it may vary. There could be a fee. I'm not sure what that would be. Now, what I'd also add is that all the countries involved, including the UK, have been trying to make it clear that they do not want a situation where people are being uprooted. It's not even just a moral issue, although there is a strong moral issue there, but an economic one as well. In fact, the Netherlands were one of the first to try and make it clear that regardless of an agreement, they really wanted Britons to be able to carry on living and working there after Brexit without any problems. Citizenship itself in the Netherlands is not that straightforward, though, as it won't be in many countries. May also be worth noting citizenship options rather than simply settled status, because if it's possible to obtain, say, dual citizenship, then it's a bit more secure for the future, and also may allow you a greater range of rights depending on, because individual countries within the EU, if we don't have a deal with the EU, then the individual arrangements will vary by EU country. And although the EU have said just in general, try and sort it out, make it easy, individual nations will have done that in different ways. So there have been reports, for example, of visas being difficult to obtain in some parts of the EU. So one that drew my attention, because it was in Austria again, and I was reading reports of a British opera singer working in Austria. Now, like other EU countries, Austria will allow him to live and work there after Brexit. However, as he won't be an EU citizen, he won't be guaranteed freedom of movement around the rest of the EU. So that would make his job impossible, and he says he's already lost work as a result of the uncertainty of his ability to travel soon. His only chance, unless the UK either remains or agrees a deal, is to become an Austrian citizen and therefore an EU citizen. Because remember, just because the nation you live and work in grants you settled status, that doesn't mean to say you can move around the rest of the EU freely. You're still a British citizen, and if the UK is not in the EU, you're not an EU citizen. But the process of becoming an Austrian citizen, first of all, it's costly and time consuming, as it would be for any nation. It also means giving up the citizenship that you grew up with for no other reason other than your nation of origin lost its marbles. People have lobbied for Austria to allow dual citizenship in these cases, as they have done, for example, for Holocaust victims, but they've refused. They have allowed dual citizenship for Austrians living in the UK to smooth that out. Now, if a no-deal Brexit occurs, then that's what they're going to do, but not the other way around. It's apparently a touchy subject there due to some friction with the Turkish population. We don't need to go into that. Now, if you happen to live in Italy, the process can be a little bit easier because not only does Italy allow for dual citizenship potentially, but you have an automatic right to Italian citizenship if you have an Italian ancestor born at any time since 1861. So it doesn't just have to be a granny. Of course, you'd have to be able to prove that, but the path exists there. There's also been a significant number of British citizens living and working in the UK who've applied for dual citizenship where they have a family link, such as a spouse, for a nation that allows it, just so that for in the future, for, again, ease of travel, if nothing else, even if you're not intending to move there at any point in the future. Because it's funny, isn't it, how the idea of movement was a central plank to the Leave campaign's argument, but it's actually, when it comes down to it, not considered a downside at all. Freedom of movement is something we'd like. Even the very Brexiteers who argued against this freedom of movement have tried to make sure that they don't miss out themselves. Now, the greatest number of applications seems to have been for Ireland, unsurprisingly, as well as Germany, France and Belgium. Dominic Raab, the hardline Brexiteer, applied for permanent residency in France. Nigel Farage also famously tried to acquire German citizenship. He got German citizenship for his kids. He tried for himself. They failed. It is strange that these Brexiteers are comfortable denying British citizens the right to live and work and move within the EU, but they don't want to show solidarity by denying themselves those same rights. Another potential hope on the horizon is that some members of the cabinet do appear to be pushing the Prime Minister to adopt the commitment to a permanent customs union as a way of getting the withdrawal through Parliament. That would limit the damage of Brexit to enough of an extent to potentially get more support in the House and should make life a lot easier for UK citizens resident in the EU. But do beware, it is, as you might imagine, very divisive, and the other half of Cabinet are massively railing against it. So we'll find out more over the coming week, I imagine. So that's the situation for Britons living in other EU countries. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe for further content, and until next time, I'll see you later.